I guess I'll just add in terms of the DerMarr Johnson. Much as I do think, I've known Larry for many, many years. As I said, I've known him back when I was with the Trib. He was a consistent guy that I had on there. And that would have only been, 4 years ago would be the most recent time. So it wasn't like it's too long ago. He is a really, really good guy. At the end of the day, as much as I do think it was a little disrespectful for how it was handled. And I've heard the rumors too about people hypothesizing that he was involved in messing up Jose Perez. I don't believe that. I never heard that. I think an example was going to be made. The kid transferred a bunch of times. It's not fair. He's getting screwed, but he practiced with Manhattan. He transferred a bunch of times. Even though JT Daniels is Van Wilder and transferring every year too, he's been hurt. That wasn't the case with Jose Perez. His coach got fired. It sucks. I would want out of there too. But I think they were just making an example. There's no legitimacy that I've been aware of that Larry screwed it up in any way. I will say I definitely have heard, and Larry will admit this, that him and Bob are not as close as they were. I mean, they've been together 24 years, 8 at Cincy, all this time at WVU. They're not BFFs, best friends, hanging out every weekend like they would have been at Cincinnati or West Virginia early on. There have been a little bit. It almost feels like, as you could imagine, any walk of life or any relationship that you may have, that Larry, it might even be better for Bob in a way. And I know Bob wants to distance himself from saying that he made this decision, and I can't say whether he really did or not, but he doesn't want to publicly say this was what I recommended. It was almost like it was cast upon me. As we all know, they're not doing something without running it by Bob. They're not going to surprise Bob Huggins. I do not believe the conspiracy theory that is out there by some that they did this intentionally to get Bob to quit because they want to fire him, but they can't. That is, I've heard that put out there.
Yeah, I saw that too.
That is, I do not buy that for 2 seconds. And if Bob ever got wind of that, he would drag he is not going to just take some crap. Like, he's still got that in him, even though he's older now. So they do not want to get into that with Bob. I mean, Bob could run for governor at West Virginia. They don't want to be getting in there. No. So I don't buy that at all. But it could be good for Bob in a way that, when you have somebody that's been with you for so long, it almost came across to me that Larry felt like he was so secure that he knows Bob so well. He's been there so long. He's been at both Final Fours with Bob. Nobody else can say that starting his career out, even going back to Cincy, that he just felt like he kind of could do whatever. He maybe was able to tell Bob he disagreed with something in the middle of practice that other coaches, I'd imagine DerMarr, I'm not going to do on his first day on the job. Right. Larry would have no problem doing. That this might allow Bob to really be in charge, to be free of any of that whatever he's doing at practice, he's going to do. He doesn't have to stop for 5 minutes and argue with Larry. Like, those things have happened that I did hear. I know that Larry is upset about this. He's put that out there. They just put out the best interests of Mountaineer basketball and all that. I've talked to Larry. I talked to Larry a bunch, actually. I'm not going to say all of what he said, but it sucks. I wish he was treated better in terms of, I think the coaching staff had to get younger. Love the move of bringing in DerMarr, 20 years younger, closer to the age of these players. He can mentor Jose Perez. Yep. We didn't start hearing all this stuff from Perez about maybe wanting to come back until you got rumblings of DerMarr. Like, he could be directly mentoring Perez to get him to come back next year. I've heard that from some, that he is really involved in that. Good. So he is just going to be great, and he might even be great for the transfer portal. He can tell these kids, I can help you get to make money playing this. Not guaranteeably all NBA, 16-year pro career. It wasn't all NBA, but if you want to make money, I can get you to all these different places. I got feelers everywhere. He can show you how to do that. And also, like, I'm Pittsburgh media. West Virginia is in a region that there are 2 major media markets that circulate around West Virginia. Pittsburgh is one. And you have Pittsburgh media, and some like it, some don't, because there's rival teams that are also covered there. The other one that you're not dealing with rivals outside of maybe Maryland is the DC media. It's even bigger time than Pittsburgh media. So DerMarr has the connection to DC with that maybe media attention that he could bring, as well as being a great basketball player 20 years ago there. That's a place that has lineage in basketball, whereas Pittsburgh doesn't bring it as much in basketball. It's more of a football hotbed. So he could really be a pipeline to that recruiting, really help with transfers, his age with these current players, and having a guy who's has some youth in him that maybe listen to the same type of music as these kids, versus Larry Harrison over 60 years old. He's not. And DerMarr was hitting shots from the logo his first day there at the Coliseum.
What I heard Bob say that.
Larry's not hitting a shot from a logo. Like, he's not playing him one-on-one.
Yeah.
He's not going to be involved in he can't show them how to do it if they don't hear what he's saying and can't do it. DerMarr could physically do it still and show them how to do it. He is young enough.
Right.
Yeah.
And, yes, he didn't become a basketball Hall of Famer. He didn't have a career of LeBron and Tracy McGrady and all those others around that same early 2000s period, but he was the number 6 overall pick in the 2000 NBA draft. That is a big deal.
Absolutely.
And the number one high school player in America.
Right.
As a freshman. I mean, he only played 1 year of college ball.
Right. Yeah. So he didn't, and I guess a better comparison is Tracy McGrady. Around that same time, Tracy McGrady comes out of high school from a different area, coming from Florida. He becomes a Hall of Famer. DerMarr does not. He has to go make money in overseas, etc. His NBA career is basically forgotten, but he did play there a while. But still, I mean, you got to be good coming out to get there. He certainly knows what he's seen, and he probably can also mentor these kids and say, here's where I went wrong and why I wasn't Tracy McGrady. Like, maybe I wasn't also as good, but I'm sure you always hear from athletes who didn't make it, that had a lot of hype out of high school or college, that I maybe turned this corner wrong. I did this wrong. I didn't practice here enough. I didn't do this enough, whatever the case may be. I'm not speaking for him, but maybe he can help them, figure that out and not make mistakes that maybe he did make. So I love the hire. I think it was a home run hire. And as much as even the players and former players that were all really upset because of Larry's dismissal, they also all spoke very positively and publicly about DerMarr being hired. It almost seems like, and this is maybe also rare for the past few years in terms of unanimous love of WVU news, that the only piece of news that maybe overshadows Blaine, and Blaine happened after this, but DerMarr also was received very positively. I think that was received very positively by pretty much everybody as well, that even the people that were really mad about Larry being dismissed were thinking, okay, man, they disrespected him, but they got a good guy. They made a right decision there. They got a home run hire. So it's hard to be too mad when they hit that one out of the park. And the only thing that they could have done was, get an assistant, a youthful assistant like DerMarr, and then keep Larry for a while and then just let it and ask him to maybe retire or ask him to walk away instead of having to make the announcement kind of just out of nowhere. But I will tell you, I won't say what was said privately. Larry was surprised. Larry is upset. That's kind of out there publicly. I don't know factually if any of the other rumors are true, but that's going to happen. And I'll admit, as a journalist, the very first thing I did, which Larry touched on, and he thought people were going to think, I immediately looked at West Virginia State Police and typed in Larry Harrison. Was like, there got to be, was he arrested? Yeah. Was there a scandal? Is there something that we don't know of? He might have got arrested the night before, and then they had to just cut bait because it was going to get really bad. But none of that came up, and Larry had said, that's not a thing. There's no scandal. There's no crimes. There's no legality. None of that. So, if there's something we're going to find out probably 5 years from now, the NCAA is looking something up and they're doing something WVU because of what happened now. It will be a while. But he claims.
Well, I don't know what it could be. We ain't had the players.
Nothing. Yeah, and I don't know what it could be either. I mean, the Oscar Shibway situation, we've heard from Bob. He thinks that was a conspiracy against him, not for him. And it certainly wasn't Larry that he's mad at there.
Right.
He's been clear. I don't think the timing makes sense that he could even have messed up anything with Perez. Like, what are you going to mess up? They put the appeal in when they had to put it in timely wise. They put the request in when they had to do it timely wise. They had a small window to recruit. That's exactly when Bob was doing it. You could argue Bob was calling him too much. It wasn't Larry calling. It was Bob's phone every single time. He eventually picked up, talked to Bob. Coach got fired. He put it out there publicly. He was looking around. WVU, it wasn't a crazy pick out of the schools he was choosing from after the coach get fired. Hall of Fame coach, major conference program. I mean, a lot of New York players travel back and forth. It's not crazy. It just wasn't going to work. It didn't happen. I don't think it clearly now feels like they were never going to approve it. So I don't know why. I don't know why. I'd love to know why everybody at the program, everyone in media, everyone who's a fan, everyone like yourselves who are certain, above an Ashford fan, maybe all the players, Jose himself, everyone thought the appeal was getting approved. how could we all think that? And I mean, even national media, Jay Billis surprised. So the rug was pulled out from under everybody. It's rare that you see that happen too.
My concern was when I saw that is I was thinking, did Jose Perez put all of his trust in West Virginia's staff? Because they promised him, or maybe not promised, but they told him, hey, we almost guarantee you this is going to get approved. You know,
the language, I believe,
and then he pulled back. And then now that it didn't happen, I mean, it's obvious he seems to not place any blame at all on West Virginia based on his social media stuff.
I think,
but that's always a risk when that happens.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair to WVU though, the language that I've heard and the language they've even admitted is they told Jose they would do everything in their power to work for him, and if they do so, they're confident. So like it's a walk. It's not like they said, it's a done deal.
Right.
They massaged the language a little bit here. But I've said this. If I was Jose Perez, I would be so PO'd at the NCAA, I wouldn't come back. I wouldn't play anywhere in college basketball. I would go try to make money somewhere else professionally playing. I would get on some deal somewhere overseas, probably make some cash. And then after I do that for a while, maybe even get into the G League or whatever, because that could happen. You can get in there and make some money. It's not big time money, but it's, like our salary. It's good. It's better than him doing what he's doing now, not playing and not making any money, probably. Sell some T-shirts. You can do that then. Don't even worry about an NIL deal if you're a pro. And just be done with college basketball. I'd be sick. I'd be sick. I'd be disgusted. I'd be done with college basketball. I try to go make some money anywhere, because even if he comes back next year, he's not probably an NBA player. So just do whatever you can. If you do well there, that could get you to the NBA. Teams call up G League players at the end of the year. If you can get on one of those contracts, sometimes even a summer league, almost anybody can walk on and try to get that done. Really, if you have any basketball ability, they call those players up. Even like the Lakers last year, once they knew they're out of it and they really disappointed, they brought up a lot of those kids and let them play for a few games. You get that cup of coffee. Who knows where that goes? I mean, that might, I don't know, rather than come back and deal with the NCAA again.
Well, and I can see your point there, but
imagine him trying to transfer again, though. Lord, I mean, that would be either that or WVU.
Here's my argument to that, though. Jose Perez, through all this, has become a beloved figure by the West Virginia fan base.
Well, that 100%, yeah.
He could capitalize on that with a huge NIL deal potentially.
Well, he's selling some T-shirts, but he does need an NIL.
He's probably going to be. I mean, we're losing Stevenson, we're losing Matthews, we're losing Mitchell, we're losing all of Johnson and Toussaint. We're losing all those guys. He will be the most popular player on that team next year, more than likely. Unless they go out to Portland and bring in some, a superstar. But
as of now, a lot of shots for him. As much as he's friends with those guys, and I know that I actually had said this. I don't know if you heard, but on my shows, and I put this out there on Twitter, I did believe, and I'm not a therapist, I don't know this to be true, but it really appeared to me that the team, you don't just all of a sudden miss some free throws. Like, it doesn't matter who you're playing. You hitting free throws is not dependent on the opponent.
Right.
It appeared to me mentally losing the Perez decision, as well as other things, got them out of it a little bit.
It did.
Like, I know for sure Stevenson was, they were all in on Perez coming. All in on Perez coming.
Mm-hmm.
Huggins talked about it publicly that we're good now, but just wait till you see when Mitchell gets healthier and when we add Perez to this, we're even going to be better. He said that as recent as the second or third game of the season, going back early in a post-game press conference, he publicly said that. So he was trying to talk it into existence, and it might have psyched them out when it was just a balloon popping. Like, man, what we were kind of sold on, fair or not, is not going to happen now, and they don't have eligibility left. So Eric Stevenson probably was like, I'm never going to get to play with them. It's not going to happen. Now we're losing the guy that was going to be
That's a great point. I never even thought about that.
So mentally, that could have hurt them. It's not an excuse at all. I mean, they still should have won some of those conference games after what they did out of conference against Purdue and some good teams, unlike last year. So that's no excuse. But I could have seen that, because the win against TCU, they're hitting free throws. If they would have hit free throws the other 5 games, they would have at least won 2 of them. Yep. And if they're 3-2, that's a lot different than 1-5.
They're in the middle of the pack in the
a lot different than 1-5. If they would have lost to TCU, I mean, that'd be it. I mean, I don't even know how we could convince anybody to care the rest of the year.
Yeah.
So I do think there was a mental thing in there it was part of it a little bit. Just guessing, really. I can't speak for him. And Now it almost appears, okay, we got to mature. That's not going to happen. Now it was like, now we really got a vigor to us. And you could argue that hiring DerMarr, because that's the only other change that occurred, that picked up a vibe. There was an atmosphere at the Coliseum. It was like a middle of a tournament game. It was different than the other 5 conference games in the Big 12. They were really feeling themselves like they weren't out of conference play. So it was either that they realized that, hey, we got to do this now or we're done, or they got something to slap them in the face when they were down before to pick them up again. And maybe it's the DerMarr hire. Maybe that was, they needed a kick in the pants after being so down, that was part, that might be the simplest reason to why they made a move, because Huggins maybe thought, okay, this guy is going to the end of his career anyway. Let's get younger and we got to kick him in the pants somehow. So I don't know, but yeah, for basketball, to have a year under Huggins would certainly help Perez. He's not NBA ready by any means. He could make money off of this. He should make more money than just selling T-shirts. And the only other end of it is, if he would have been a part of this year's team this year, and him off the bench would have been great. I mean, they've been struggling at the end of games. He could have been a great spark plug. There wouldn't have been that many shots for an 18.9 per game score from a year ago. Next year, judging what they have now, and obviously they're going to go back in the portal, he might have a chance to be a guy that can take a lot of shots and really put some stats up. I don't know if that would have happened this year, and then he finished his career as kind of a bench player as a 6th man. His value might be better for pros next year, getting more minutes, building it up, as long as he's in shape, than what it would have been now. Yeah.
I will say, if he can go through a full off season in the weight room like Huggins does all his players, that'd be hugely beneficial to him, because you know, Huggins players especially get beefed up, so that's always, and you need that for the physicality.
That's why not everybody can play for Huggins. That's why I don't think last year's players really were into the treadmill on NFL Sunday, but it seems like these players are all about it, which was surprising why they would just all of a sudden start sucking so much in conference play, because they were really more bought in than last year's players, and also more talented. And it wasn't just like, because everyone brings up the out of conference schedule, it's the same type of out of conference schedule that the rest of the Big 12 plays, except for Kansas. And last year they didn't have anything on it besides the phone call to Gonzaga. This year you're playing Purdue, who snagged a #1 ranking in the country soon after the game. They should have beat Xavier. They didn't. That does sting a little bit, but like, it's no different. It's the same type of out of conference schedule that every team plays. And if you stack it too much more, they're going to lose some games. They got Auburn coming up and out of conference. So they did the same thing that every team does. They just all of a sudden started playing worse and couldn't hit free throws, and then were mentally unraveling. I mean, that even connects to Eric Stevenson collapsing and mentally collapsing at the end of the Kansas State game. He did cost them that game. I don't know if that would have happened if he was happy and free Jose and all those things were positive for him. So you don't see that as much anymore. You don't see any more free Jose from there. I wouldn't be shocked if Huggins, had a sidebar with these guys and was like, look, I wanted him. We thought it was happening. It didn't happen. But every 20 minutes with the free Jose tweet while we're losing and we're 0-5 in conference play is not working for me.
Yeah.
Like
very true. Well, and there was a part of me that thought, you know what? Maybe the whole not knowing was actually worse than finally getting an answer. Because at least now he could move forward with his life and know what to do.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Yeah, and it should have been quicker. There's no reason.
Oh, absolutely, it should have been quicker. Absolutely, it should have been quicker. But I've heard that just anything in life. Sometimes not knowing is worse than getting the answer you don't want.
Yeah, the anticipation builds. The expectations will build.
That's very prophetic. That should be a tweet. But yeah, that is that's very, very true. Yeah, I mean, if it's going to be bad news, I'd rather rip the Band-Aid off. Honestly,
that's right.
And honestly, there's also a part in life that maybe this is also a lesson of. Not to be negative, I don't want anyone to be, pessimistic going around. But if you get too high and you're just walking around optimistic, living in the clouds, like, oh, it's like Seinfeld. Oh, it'll just work out for me. You're running the risk of having your balloon popped and really not having, just wait, just live on, normal mentality. If it happens, great. If not, it's not the end of the world. You're still good as you are. It's not like, who knows if he was going to start, what he was going to do. There were some that thought it was going to be a great addition, obviously, but I know our Ethan Bach was wondering how that was going to work, how they were all going to figure it out pecking order wise. Jose wasn't going to want to be on the floor for 2 shots a game.
Yeah.
Like, how was that going to happen? somebody was going to have to change their role. They kind of already figured it out at that point.
Right.
I mean,
being that they were 0-5, I don't think it'd have been too.
Yeah, you got your answers.
That.
Yeah.
Well, that once they got 0-5, I guess Couz and I are kind of saying that might have led to the 0-5. But yeah, once they're 0-5, they're lucky to be on the floor. Right. I mean, Eric's lucky that he didn't lose some minutes after the whole debacle against State, but they were desperate to win some freaking games, as they still kind of are.
Yeah, you're right. Mike, real quick, man, I've got your Twitter handle scrolling at the bottom of the screen, but just let everybody know where they can find you and find your work.
Sure. Yeah. At Mike Asti 11 there at the bottom of the screen, MikeASTI 11, and then WV Sports Now. So WVSportsNow.com, any of our channels throughout our network. You can also find me throughout, different places in Pittsburgh media as well. It's all there at my Twitter handle. Even what I do with the Believe Network and my podcast there at Mike Drop. So Apple, Stitcher, Spotify, etc. Search for myself. You can find me all over there, as well as do a Google search. You'll find me at other places as well, whether they're covering the Mountaineers, they're not covering the Mountaineers. But for Mountaineer fans, WV Sports Now and at Mike Asti 11 for my Twitter handle.
All right, Paul, what about you, man?
You can find me at Paul Mountaineer on Twitter, and also at Hoops from the Hills, which is a partnership between Couz and myself, and also at Mountaineer Paul Talks Football.
Awesome. Yeah, go check out both of these guys. Check out their content, their work. Both do good stuff out there, I should say. But Mike, I thank you for coming on the show, man.
Absolutely,
it's always a pleasure to have you on. The last time I had you on, my audience really enjoyed it. Actually had one guy tell me it was the best show I'd ever had. So thank you.
I will not let my ego get too crazy then, if that is the case. I'm sure that's not accurate. I'm sure you've
he loved he really liked the way he liked the chemistry and the way we conversate. And of course you always bring a different view than I can get, because I'm not in the media and I'm not as close to the program as you are. So it's always cool to get that perspective, man. And so yeah, I do appreciate that. And Paul, obviously I appreciate you joining me too, man, even though I know you've had a really busy day today and had a lot going on. So thanks for hopping on with us.
No problem.
Yeah. Nice talking to you guys.
Yep. Y'all, everybody have a good day, and we're out. Q Country Roads.